Well, welcome to my live show. It's so great that you're joining in with us today. Hope you've had a great week. It's hard to believe it's Thursday and almost the end of June. The summer is flying by, and before you know it, we'll have school beginning for another year. And certainly we're dealing with a lot of uncertainty in your state, your country, our world, wherever you're located. And so we're going to be talking about some of that uncertainty today and how you can navigate through the enrollment crisis that you may be facing at your school. I'm a huge proponent of working with schools to help them through their enrollment turnaround. I named my company Enrollment Catalyst for a purpose, that I wanted to partner with schools to help them turn around their enrollment and be able to see growth over time. And so that's why I'm excited about today's show. And so as you're joining in, tell us where you're located. We certainly would love to see who's joining in on the show today. And so if you could tell us what school you're with and what part of the country or the world that you're tuning in to today, that would be awesome. So in case you missed last week's show, I did a solo show, and I focused in on how you could launch your own live show. And so I walked through 9 steps for what you need to do to be able to implement your own live show in your school. And you can find that replay on my Facebook page. You can also find it on my YouTube channel. And it's a great opportunity to be able to consider a new strategy. I've been using this strategy for a few months now, and I highly recommend it to schools that I'm working with. That it's a way to exponentially increase your outreach online. When you go live, it certainly pushes out that notification, and people are able to see that that you're online and that you have some content that you need to share. And so I've had schools that have worked with their community and being able to interview parents and faculty and alumni and students. And so it's been just a great format to be able to have that conversation along the way. So great to have you here, Wes, from Miramar, Florida. So great to have another Floridian. I don't know about you, Wes, but it's been really hot here in Florida. I think our temperatures have been in the low 90s, and it's very humid. On the west side of the state, which is where I'm located, we haven't had any rain for days. And so it's been just very warm and humid. ASAP is here, so it's probably Janice tuning in. So great to have you. I'm a huge proponent of the Association of Independent School Admissions Professionals. And so they have a great virtual summer institute coming up in July. And so if you're looking for professional development, I would highly recommend that you tune in to ASAP and all that they have to offer. I'll be presenting a workshop at that Summer Institute on how you can develop your enrollment and marketing plan for your school. We have Susanna here from Baltimore. So great to have you, Susanna, as part of the live show today. Again, if you're joining in, tell us where you're from so that we can I can give a shout out to you and thank you for joining in and being part of this live show. And Jody's here from Wake Christian in Raleigh, North Carolina, and Courtney's here from Fax. And Courtney, it's always great to have you as part of the live shows. In fact, Courtney was a guest a few weeks ago, and we talked about marketing to the millennial generation. Jane is here from St. Ursula Academy from the Diocese of Toledo. So that's awesome. And thank you for that endorsement, Janice, that you're saying that I'm one of your favorite not favorite. I put that word out there. I misread that. So one of your key faculty presenters. Maybe I'm your favorite. I don't know if you'll say that, but thanks anyway for joining us and being part of the show today. So it looks like we have a great number of people who are joining in, and we're looking forward to a wonderful conversation. Mary's here from Portersville Christian, a school I'm working with, and Debbie's here from Barnesville School of Arts and Sciences. And I had worked with Barnesville a number of years ago through my Enrollment Catalyst program. And Jane is here from Westminster Catawba Christian in South Carolina, another school that I'm working with. And then also Amy's here from St. Mary's Riken in Maryland. Great to have you, Amy. And Noelle's from Wilmington Montessori School in Delaware. And Wes is saying hi to Courtney. So it's great to have shout outs among the comments along the way. And Elisa is here from Exceed Preparatory Academy in Florida, another school that I've had the opportunity to work with. as they provide a great educational opportunity in their environment. So we have a great show lined up for you. Andy's here from North Star Marketing. Andy was one of the guests on the show a few weeks ago where we talked about pivoting our strategies in the digital marketing world. And Andy's been a great partner for me as I work with schools, especially when they need help with website design and online marketing strategies. And Chris is here from Central Catholic High School in Lawrence, Massachusetts. So thanks for joining us, Chris. And again, as you join in, tell us where you're from. Great to have you here. And just a little announcement about the future as we're in the summer. I won't be doing the live show for the next couple of weeks, but then I'll have a schedule back on in July later on. And so we'll have the opportunity to be able to have more conversations about some of the key topics that we're talking about along the way. So, and Lisa's here from Lexington Christian in Kentucky, another school that I've been working with. So great to have you here, Lisa. So we have a great show lined up for you today. We're going to be talking about an important conversation. Several weeks ago, I had the opportunity to read through the Independent School magazine by the National Association of Independent Schools. And there was an article in there that really grabbed my attention. Talked about the 12 growth mindsets and for the enrollment crisis. And that's our conversation today. And I had reached out to the author of that article. And I want to introduce you to him as well as to two of his teammates. And we're going to talk through this important conversation as we focus in on these 12 growth mindsets for the enrollment crisis. So let me introduce to you Dr. Olaf Jorgensen. So glad to have you here, Oli.
Good to be here, Rick. Thank you. Hi, everybody.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit about yourself and your background. And you're head of school at Almaden Country Day School in the San Jose, California area.
Correct, yeah. So I've been here, this is my 13th year, entering my 13th year. Prior to this, I began my career as a public school administrator and wanted to be a superintendent, and then No Child Left Behind sent me in a different direction. Worked internationally for a number of years, and then took my first headship at a school in Hawaii, Hawaii Preparatory Academy. Worked there for a few years and then discovered Almaden Country Day School, and this is where I will be until I retire, hopefully. The board will have me.
Very good. Excellent. Hopefully that's a long time off. So.
We'll see.
Exactly. Let me introduce to you Jennifer. Jennifer, great to have you here. You're the associate head of school.
Yes.
And you focus in on advancement. So great to have you.
Thank you so much for having us today.
Yeah. How long have you been at Almaden?
This is my 6th year at ACDS. And prior to this, I was at another independent school. I was a middle school teacher for 17 years, and I've been in administration now for 10 years.
Okay, very good. And you oversee all the advancement areas, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Marketing, admissions, and development.
Excellent. That's a big task that you have, all those areas on your plate.
Well, so, I'm lucky. I have a great team.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, let's meet one of your teammates, Mary Jo. Great to have you here. Mary Jo, yeah, you're the Director of Admissions and Outreach.
I am indeed. Yes. Thank you for having us.
Very good. And how long have you been at the school?
In the admissions role, I'm going to be starting my 11th year with the school. Although I've been affiliated with the school for a long time because I was a parent volunteer, a PSA, a Parent Service Auxiliary member and president, and then I also served on the board of trustees for a number of years. So have a long history with the school, and maybe I have an institutional memory. Sometimes I choose to forget things, but yeah.
Exactly. So let's dive in and talk about this article, but maybe Oli, you could set the stage. What motivated you to want to write this article? What was going on at your school that really drove you to want to provide this topic of conversation through the NAIS magazine?
Sure. Well, thanks, Rick. Well, first of all, I mean, the article was retrospective. We didn't, Jen and Mary Jo and I didn't sit down in 2010 and make a list of mindsets. That didn't work that way at all. It really was each mindset is a case for change. And, as we determined what changes needed to happen, we had to figure out a way to make the changes sustainable. It's the Rob Evans model of you tell them why you're changing and what you're changing to and how you're going to get there. We had to be really thoughtful about making sure that the changes would be, because it's such a critical, this really was a matter of the school's survival. So, but the school has, we're in a situation like many of the schools you consult to, where the conditions are very challenging. We have a lot of competition. We have excellent public schools. We've got a great charter school 10 minutes from us. We've got lots of strong independent schools. We have a shrinking enrollment population. We have in our main pipeline zip code, we have 52% fewer children than we did in 2010. So, we have all these conditions. We're in an inconvenient location. We have a 60-year-old camp. We got all these different conditions that are challenging. So it wasn't like, the Great Recession was a catalyst for change for us, but these conditions are perpetual for us. So really, I wrote the article because, if we want to be in a collaborative community of schools, then I feel like I have an obligation to, if we find something that works, we should share it. And so this worked for us, and we felt like we should share it. I also have a concern about, the proportion of this epidemic. If almost half of the NAIS schools are in enrollment decline and 1 in 8 critically under-enrolled, it just seems like the response from, with the exception of a handful of consultants like yourself and Enrollment Management Association and maybe the Association of Boarding Schools, this is not a headline, and it should be. It must be. Yeah. So I'm hoping that this article also can be eventually the start of a conversation about addressing this crisis more broadly.
Exactly. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that and giving us a backdrop for the reason for the article and some of what's going on at your school, because you had found that enrollment had declined, and so you were working through these growth mindsets. Not like you had the 12 laid out before you, but you worked on it over time, and now you can provide this insight and perspective in retrospect to help other schools. So let's dive in and let's take a look at each of the 12 growth mindsets that you mentioned in your article. And I love the first one. We're all admissions directors, so it's not just, Mary Jo in the saddle of leading admissions. It's everybody. And what you say is we're all marketing directors and communication directors. So share with me a little bit more insight about that and how that actually works at your school.
Yeah. Well, I guess the change that prompted this mindset, or the need for some education, was driven by our recognition that in addition to finding more students out there, we also needed to do a better job of keeping the ones that we have. And, what is the source for every parent in terms of the value proposition? It's your 13-year-old boy when he comes home and you ask him what happened at school today, and he says nothing, or or an 8-year-old child or whatever. The point is that we knew that we had to improve our internal marketing, and we needed the teachers to do this. So recognizing that the culture, in many schools and at ours at the time, was that the teachers felt, look, they don't get into teaching to promote the school. If they wanted to do that, they would have, founded consulting companies for, whatever. The point is that teachers didn't see themselves as doing that kind of work. So we had to help them understand, actually, you have a powerful voice when it comes to the influence you can have on parents. And we want to harness that voice and show off the great things you're doing, because you also have a responsibility to our enrollment situation. So that was what was going on.
Yeah.
it really worked remarkably well. This actually was, even though it's the first mindset that's listed, it was a later initiative, and we had things pretty well underway in terms of everybody realizing that we're all in this together, and we do have a crisis, and we can continue to thrive if we work together. So we sort of had the foundation laid for this one, but this was a matter of using a photo sharing platform where the teachers are taking pictures in class and sharing the pictures with the parents, and the parents then getting super excited about what's happening in the class because they can see it, and the volume of gossip on the blacktop virtually disappearing. So, it worked really well, and the teachers saw the feedback, and they saw the kids getting excited and the parents excited about the pictures going home. And yeah, it's been a real success.
That's awesome. I don't know, Mary Jo, if you want to add anything to that, because I often find that, there's a disconnect with faculty and staff. They think that admissions and marketing is someone else's job. And so it sounds like you guys really went through the transformation with the community there.
We did. And Oli really talked frankly with the staff, with the faculty, and let them know what situation we were in and what we needed to do. And by empowering the faculty to actually realize the importance of their communication and their presentation to not only the students, but to parents, to people who are on campus, it made a huge difference. And it didn't happen overnight by any means. It took a little while. But by referring to it, by reminding them and giving them opportunities to promote in their own way, I think that it's now embedded in our culture.
That's great. I mean, we could spend a whole hour just on this topic here. And that's the thing about all 12 of these. We really could, this could be a whole conference where you're working through, all 12 of these growth mindsets. So, but that's an important step, certainly, that I see in schools, is to get everyone to embrace that they have a role in admissions and marketing communications. So you guys ready to move on to the next one, or anything else you wanted to add?
Can I add one more thing, Rick, for the listeners, or viewers rather? So one of the things that was important for us in that frank conversation that I had, the initial one anyway, is I shared an example of one of our peer schools in the area that had done just this thing that we're talking about and their success. And then after the first year of using this internal marketing technique, we actually did have, at that time anyway, we set a record for retention. And I was able to come right back to the faculty in the last faculty meeting and say, hey, now who knows if, there's so many different variables.
Sure.
And I was honest about that, but I said, this could have had, a primary, this is the only change we made. And look, now we're up at 95% retention. So they got feedback, positive reinforcement. So I think that was important too.
Yeah, that's great. Debbie's actually asking a question. She wants to know what photo sharing platform you found to be most successful. You talked about that with the faculty helping in that process.
Yeah, we looked at a bunch. We chose Homeroom. I don't remember. I wasn't part of the team that did the final selection. Jen, was that you guys who did that? I don't remember.
Yeah, Mary Jo and our marketing director and we, along with teacher feedback, we had a committee of teachers that explored some of the platforms to make sure that we chose one that was really going to work well for the teachers. And it's, it's invite only, so it's a private sharing platform. And Homeroom, for those of you out there, looks very similar to Instagram. It has a similar feel and look. And we found we wanted to find a platform that would be, appropriate for parents of our preschoolers all the way up through our 8th graders. And that was the one that we felt the best about.
Excellent. So let's move on. Let's go to the second growth mindset. Whatever you say you are, be it.
Yeah, it's really important to make sure that you are walking your talk. That when families come and they take a tour with Mary Jo, we really want them to walk away and feel with a strong feel of what we say we are. And it's the same with the internal marketing. We want to make sure that our families are seeing our value proposition, that are seeing that we're unique. So back in 2017, what we decided to, really take a long, hard look at ourselves to make sure that we're walking our talk. And so we started with kind of an internal audit. And we worked with some consultants to really help us take a deep dive. We interviewed parents. They interviewed some people out in the greater community to get a sense of how did people see our school, and really make sure that what we think sets us apart is how we're seen by our internal and the external community. So, and part of that process was then to really make sure that our value proposition was crisp. And that everyone in our community could easily spout about what makes ACDS ACDS, right? And that they all were kind of saying something similar. So that was a really important part of our process. And we did actually communication trainings with the board of trustees, with the faculty, to make sure that if you have 20 seconds with a parent, if you have 30 seconds with a parent, if you have a minute to talk to a parent or a prospect, that everybody's really getting to the heart of what makes us unique.
Yeah, that's great. I love the line in the article, Oli. Parents will pay a school's tuition if they believe the value their children receive outweighs the cost. That's so important.
Right. And that, the homeroom app that Oli spoke about has really helped with this. If we're seeing that, we're a balance of academic rigor and character development and the joy of being a child, and our parents are regularly seeing that, then there's a belief in the value proposition.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I jump in and just talk about how the school presents itself as well? Because when I take families on tours, I actually often ask, do we represent the same way that we represent through our website or through the word of mouth or however it is they learned about us? I ask, do we represent? Do we actually show what you think we are? Like, do we show off the same way? And that is really important, because if your external marketing, if your website shows you off as something other than you are, then there's a disconnect and there's no value, and people are going to walk away, and they're not going to share any information except, boy, they were so different than what I thought they were. Their website isn't accurate, and all of that. And so I actually ask that regularly. And I think it's really important to have that continuous feedback and, assurance that you're presenting yourself at the school as it is, authentically.
Yeah, that's so important.
Yeah, I second that. And I'd say Mary Jo also does a nice job of surveying parents after their first year in the school, to continue that feedback loop to make sure that they're experiencing the school in a way that's authentic. Yeah.
Very good. Let's move on to the third one. Good enough is no longer good enough. It sounds like we've never arrived, and we have to always keep pushing ahead. Give us more insight into what you were thinking about with this growth mindset.
Yeah, this is a hard one because, when you get to a point where, in the end, we all know that the most important and most effective marketing is the experience that the children have and that families have year in and year out. And you have to make sure that you're delivering the highest quality experience you can. And that requires a world-class faculty. And we all have been at schools with teachers who are beloved but maybe not as effective, or teachers who are effective but really just not good for morale. And so this mindset is really just a matter of it's very simple, but it's also really hard for a lot of schools. And that is, if every child every day is challenged and stimulated and loved or cared for, then the school's going to hum. And the message is going to go out.
Yeah.
But if any of those three things are missing with any colleague, then you got a problem. And if you can't train or inspire or motivate that colleague to rise to the level of excellence that you need, then you need to make some changes. And this is the time when you need the best possible faculty.
Yeah.
So the leaders have to lead. It's hard.
Yeah, it makes such a difference. Everyone has to be on board with providing the absolute best educational experience possible at your school. So let's look at the fourth one, just to keep things rolling a little bit. Keep the main thing the main thing. And I love what you were talking about here, because I often find schools are nickel and diming parents, and then they have all these different fundraisers, and you talk about that in your article. So how did you make that shift and transition at your school so that it became one of these growth mindsets?
The constantly asking parents for little bits here and there detracts from the student experience and the family experience. So, and it makes that tuition bill feel even larger, right? So we wanted to really pare it down to just those few asks. The annual giving campaign, whatever you call your annual fundraiser, and then one other spring fundraiser during the year. But we don't do any other, fundraisers, any other box tops or anything else like that. We don't do. As much as you can, bring everything into the one tuition bill, so you're not constantly asking for parents for money.
Yeah, and it's such a tendency for schools to always have their hand out, asking for more, because we can never quite get enough to be able to have all the resources to operate effectively as a school. So
well, right, and if I think there's a it's tempting to bring the tuition number down. So when people look at your website, maybe they get excited, but then if you're constantly hitting them up all year long, that's going to take away from the way they feel about their experience.
Yeah. So what did you do? Like roll all that into your two main fundraising activities?
Mm-hmm. And the things like, yes, to answer your question, Rick, and the other things, Amazon Smile, those kinds of things, they have so little impact. And if any of those things are going to drive even, one or two students away, that those tuition dollars are far more valuable than a little bit of box top money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And you guys have a unique program in place. You call it flexible tuition.
Mm-hmm.
We were just talking about that in the beginning. And, that's one way that you're communicating the opportunity to be able to receive a tuition amount that's flexible to your family.
Absolutely. And making sure that's front and center on the website. So when families are exploring our school, that they feel you want to be intentionally inviting about families asking for the support they need to enroll their child and keep their child in the school. Yeah.
Have you felt, Mary Jo, that helps to maybe soften that tuition conversation with parents, to be able to communicate that it's flexible for families?
Oh, absolutely. Without a doubt. And some families are straight up ask about it. They still might call it, oh, do you offer tuition assistance or financial aid? I explained to them about our flex tuition program. Other families are more reluctant. And so again, as we'll probably get into further, the work that I do requires asking so many questions, trying to figure out what the answers really mean, and then asking deeper questions. And so sometimes just with something they say, it sparks that question, and then I will explain it to them. And so there's no shame in asking about it or applying for it, right? So I just present it that way, and it makes sense to most people, and they're like, oh, okay, great. How do I do that? And then we go from there.
Very good. Let's talk about the fifth one. I'm interested in how you accomplish this, because when you say everybody does more, I always hear from faculty and staff, I've already got so much on my plate. How can I possibly do more? And you're going to ask me to do, X, Y, and Z to be able to help in this enrollment and marketing effort. How can I possibly do more? So how did you create that culture and that conversation among your faculty and staff?
Yeah. So, in the end, the change that we were asking that led to this, I guess, discussion, this case for change, was that we were contractually, teachers were obligated at the time to 2 open houses. And we made a deal where they could take turns with their co-teacher. So really they were only doing 1 open house.
Okay.
And so half the campus was dark when we brought people on for open houses, and it was not showing well. And so we decided that not only are we going to add an open house on Saturday, so we're going to have 3 Saturday open houses, but we're going to do 2 school day open houses. I don't remember. Maybe it was, but the bottom line was we're going to do more of this. Mm-hmm. And everybody needs to be there. So that was the ask that we were making. And teachers had already signed their contracts, by the way. So this was asking them to do more than they were contractually obligated to, because we got a report from our team from Stanford that was helping us with a market survey that, if we didn't, we were going to drop precipitously the next year and potentially have to lay people off. So I don't believe that telling people we're going to have to lay you off is a good motivation. So instead, what I did was I made a list that ended up being about 1.5 pages. I write a newsletter and I acknowledge people who are going above and beyond. And that particular month was about 1.5 pages, single spaced, of people that I knew of who had gone above and beyond. So people are already going above and beyond. People are already doing more. And we have to do this together. And then I was able to list from memory about 6 ways in which administrators around the room were doing more. And what I helped them realize is that everybody's in this together. And so it really was only a matter of about 1/3 of the faculty that wasn't bought into this already, because we'd been, at this point, in 3 years of enrollment decline, people get it. But yeah, reaching that last third was a matter of being explicit in saying, look, we're all doing more because we love the school and we all want to be thriving like we have in the past. And a few conversations like that and a message or 2 from the board like that, of support and appreciation and determination. We're not 100%, but the mentality is there.
That's great. And so it's such an important mentality to be able to bring into your school community. Anything that you want to add, Jennifer, Mary Jo, to what you saw transpire along the way with everybody coming on board and adding to their plate, doing more to help?
I think that shared commitment is contagious too. I think when you see your colleagues really working hard and consistently messaging why we're doing this, why we're working hard, I think that attitude is motivating, and I'd say gets most people on board.
Yeah, that's great.
Rick, I think we're lucky in that we had a faculty already that was pretty devoted. We actually saw it's so much a part of who we are now that, for instance, when we went online, I saw teachers throwing themselves at this work and trying to deliver our mission and personalize the experience, and to the point where they were just so exhausted. And so, yeah, I mean, it's become a part of the culture. But more than the 3 of us, given the experience across lots of schools, that this is a hard thing to do if it's not already part of the culture. So, but just acknowledging that in enrollment decline, everybody's got to do more.
Yeah, you're so right. And I think one of the other key growth mindsets that you talked about is we have to take a hard look at yourself, evaluate where you're at, confront the brutal reality of what we're facing. So share with us, what you did during that process of taking a hard look at yourself and the market research that you talked about that you had conducted. How did that work out? What did it reveal for you?
Well, as Oli mentioned, we were actually able to engage Stanford Alumni Consulting to help us. And they spent 6 months, and then determined great results for us, great information. That was in 2016-17, and we did that through a pro bono. It was a grant, so pro bono
nice.
research.
Yeah.
Very nice. And basically, you have to find out why your enrollment is declining. Why are families not coming to your school? Why are they leaving your school? And why are they staying at your school? So you have to ask a lot of questions, and a lot of hard questions. And of course, the market research is going to really guide you in determining what to do. You may get some very difficult news through that research, and you may have to make some hard choices and shift resources. But it's absolutely worth doing. And we were talking about this the other day. And if you don't have money to do the research, you can look to your internal communities, your parents. You can look to alums. You can look to like a university, local university. And, it will really guide what you do in the future. So it was super helpful for us. Oli can probably talk a little bit more about the actual results from that. But the team itself who did the research was a variety of experts with many, many years of experience. So we were very fortunate to have that. And we've acted on the results.
Yeah, they gave us 19 recommendations, Rick, and we implemented 18 of them. And they said that we were the first nonprofit that had ever, taken them up on more than 2 or 3 of their recommendations.
Oh, wow.
So we did everything. But I will say that this team of Stanford MBAs that had, from various professions, they were pretty savage with regard to their criticism of our marketing, for example. So it led to a rebranding, a complete rebranding of the school, a complete revision of a website that we had just revised, a year and a half before. And the results of the work that we did, surprisingly for the work that you guys do typically in consulting and enrollment, were immediately reflected. The next year, we had people coming to our open houses. We had more open house and inquiry and in the end applications than we'd had in years. And people were saying back to us what we were sending out in our marketing messages. So we knew that it was effective, but it was really hard to address some of the things that they were saying. The one huge benefit, because for the years of the enrollment decline, our board had been really coming down hard on us, me and the senior admin team, about doing more. Why can't we do better? Do you not have the right people? So when Stanford, when a Stanford grad stands in front of a Silicon Valley school board of trustees and says to them that, you have 1/3 fewer children in your entire catchment zone than you did in 2010, and you have more than 50% fewer in your main zip code. There's no kids out there. You need to find some new sources of enrollment. All of a sudden, the board became an ally as opposed to a critic. So that was a wonderful shift as a result of that. But it was really hard to see what we thought we did a great job with the work that we had done to promote the school, and it turned out not so much.
Yeah, it's important though that you took that step. You had that assessment. I believe in that process in my work. I want to start with looking at the reality of what we're dealing with, what's working, what's not working, what are the challenges that we're facing, so that then you can use that to help inform the plan that you're building. I think number 7 is an important one, especially now. the embrace the not knowing. We're in COVID-19, and there's a lot of uncertainty about what this next school year looks like, and even next week for that matter. So how do we embrace the not knowing in this period of uncertainty? That, as you said in your article, there's no comprehensive manual to guide you when you're trying to reverse plunging enrollment along the way.
Yeah. For us, we were fortunate to have a board that was willing to trust the senior administrators, particularly after, they had an infusion of data from the market research survey. So they, they were willing to take a risk. For us, this mindset came around both the general sense at the time that we didn't know where things were going or whether we would prevail, but also a specific project where we decided, in part because of what the Stanford team told us, and in part because we'd been thinking about it for a long time, we started a program for academically capable children who are mission appropriate, who have language-based learning challenges, dyslexia, dyscalculia, dysgraphia. And that requires a massive investment. You have to have teachers willing to put in 1,500 hours of training. You've got to have a facility. You've got to take a chance the first few years because it's 1 to 4 teacher to student ratio. It's a very expensive program. And our board took a risk on that program. And now we have almost 1/10 of our students are in the Learning Center. So it paid off, but they didn't know, we didn't know if it would work.
Yeah.
They trusted us and we threw ourselves at it, and turned out to be a success. But yeah, it is by the way, I wrote this, a year before it was published. So I had no idea that.
Right. What's COVID-19,
Right. It's a whole different story now because we're all on some level in a period of uncertainty. But yeah, that building that trust with your board and helping the board understand that, there may not be the metrics they're accustomed to, to guide them as they make decisions as we might expect in a business, and the ways in which schools are different. Rob Evans also has a great piece on that, why schools don't run or change like businesses. That's a great piece to have. It's a required reading for our board.
Yeah, especially when you're dealing with a business-minded board,
Yep.
For them to understand what it's like to be involved in leading an independent school, so different than a business.
True.
Yeah.
And Rick, there's a question in the chat about these mindsets and how they helped us. How are they helping us right now during this uncertain time? And I would say that because we had invested so much and in this work, which brought us a lot more trust from our parents and belief in our value proposition and buy-in. I think that as we've had, needed to make a lot of shifts over the past few months, I think we had a lot of buy-in already, which was really helpful. I think our division heads were saying during these past few months, we're building the plane as we fly it, as we had to shift to remote learning. And it helped that our parents were really bought into our value proposition.
Yeah, exactly. I noticed that Meg and Dorothea have joined us from Oxbridge Academy. So great to have you all here. And I had the opportunity to work with them at down in Palm Beach area several years ago. If you're joined us, tell us where you're from, and if you're enjoying our conversation, it's helpful for you. Share some love, click the like button, click the love button. Don't click the dislike button, but let us know that you appreciate the conversations that we're having. I'm interested in the next one. The investments are not costs, because often when a school is in decline, budgets are shrinking. You have to eliminate costs. And the tendency is to go to the advancement areas and start trimming there because they're not viewed as essential to the overall classroom operations in a school. And so talk to us about increasing your investment in a time when your school may be experiencing some decline, how that actually works.
So in our case, for admissions in particular, we actually increased the admissions department staff, FTE. So more hours. In addition to that, I think always looking at your whole admissions process and your outreach, and using the right tools for sure, but also investing in far more personalized attention. You have to increase your understanding, so it requires more time, more outreach, more events, more follow-up, far more follow-up. So it's the actual time by the admissions staff in particular. Of course, we have to work more efficiently, and partnering with marketing was also very, very key to creating sort of greater support of the admissions process and making sure you're working hand in hand. So you're addressing the needs of the folks who are looking at your school, or how to reach out even further and get to those, corners of our community that perhaps we hadn't reached before. Find out why people are drawn to your school. I think, the biggest difference for me is the investment in our time talking to people and spending more time with them, because they are in a buyer's market and they want to ask every single question over and over again and make sure that they are making the right decision before they buy. And I understand that. And so digging deeper and finding out why they're asking the questions they're asking and what they really want to know is also super important. But the investment, as far as our work, is in just the time and the additional hours, of course. But then again, the events, additional open houses, outreach, as Oli mentioned before.
I think the key word that you just mentioned was the word more. And it's more time, it's more effort, it's adding more hours, even investing in more staff, where that can pay the dividends, the results of this effort. Let's move on to the next one, feed your teachers. And I like what you said, Oli, borrowing from the book title, if you don't feed your teachers, they eat the students. And so good way to have an intro to that paragraph there. Of course, we don't want teachers eating the students, but talk to us about feeding the teachers and how important that is.
Yeah, I mean, sure. The principle is sound, even though it's hyperbole. It's hyperbole clearly. But if teachers are seen and known and appreciated, they're bound to give more of themselves. And at no time is it more critical to do that, I believe, in my opinion, than when the stakes are raised in an enrollment challenge. So they're stressed enough already. There's nothing to be gained by standing in front of the faculty at a meeting and saying, well, looks like we're going to be down next year. I'm going to have to cut a couple positions. I mean, that to the contrary, I believe that you need to support them and appreciate them and make sure that they're giving everything they can, because again, it's all tied together, right? If every child is challenged and stimulated and loved every day, if you can get the teachers to do that, then everything else that we're doing, especially with Mary Jo and Jen and their work in admissions and enrollment and marketing, all of that becomes easier. Because the parents are satisfied, we keep them enrolled in the school, and the messages emanating out are positive. So, yeah, I just feel like, it's always important to feed the teachers, but especially during an enrollment shortfall, and I would say also, nobody feeds the administrators except the head of school and maybe the board. So. We have to be mindful of that too.
And it can be lonely at the top. I've been there. And so it's important that you do have a board that's feeding into you, and then therefore you're feeding into your team, because it's about the morale of the people, the experience that they're creating every day in the classroom, out on the field, on the stage, wherever it may be, as they interact with families. So if you feed them, I so agree with what you're sharing. That's going to pay off significantly. I like the next one. Every day is an open house. I often will encourage schools to think about that every day is an open house. Too often we think about that big event, and we have that on the weekend, but every day you should be showing off your school. And that was essentially the point you were making in this section of your article. So elaborate a little bit more on this. How is every day an open house, and why is that important?
Sure. And actually what Oli just said helps lead right into this, because if the teachers are fed, then they are going to understand how we promote the school every single day. Every day is an open house. What I suggest to other schools, and to certainly to us on a regular basis, is have someone unrelated to the school, not interested necessarily in putting their child in your school or any school nearby, but go on a tour with the eye to how the school appears. How do the classrooms look? Are their backpacks cluttered by the front door or by the classroom door so they can't really walk in? Are they going to trip over something? Is there trash, on your grounds? How does it appear? How are the classrooms? How are the walls? Are they too cluttered? Are they easy to look at and understand what's going on in the classroom? And this actually involves a partnership with everyone at school, of course, particularly with the division heads who can speak to the teachers about how the classroom is presented. And also it empowers the teachers and the students to make certain that the classes do look good and are in good shape. That first impression for anyone who walks on campus, it could be, someone who's coming in to do service. You still want them to walk away with a great impression of your school. So we actually changed landscapers, and we hired a new facilities manager to help us with this work. And we kind of, reworked where things are stored, how certain things appear in the classrooms. And I would also say that, when you're on campus, every day is an open house. So we greet each other. We are welcoming. We are warm, and that also is part of our culture. So it's embedded.
That's great. I love that. Again, that's a great concept. And, for other schools to really buy into this, especially with their faculty and staff, you never know who's going to be walking through your school halls on a given day. Mm-hmm. And it's important that first impression comes off in a very positive way. So we have a couple more. Number 11, the leader sets the weather. So tell us a little bit about how you're programming Sunshine every day in California, and how that's working there at your school.
Yeah, I mean, much of this we've already covered, but this idea that on any day at a school, the head of school and the administrators set the tone. When I was a middle school teacher and I was having a bad day, I just put the kids in groups and do some work at my desk, and I'd be fine. You don't have that privilege as so whatever your mood is ripples out across the campus. And I don't mean that in an egotistical way. I mean that in a, just being sensitive to the fact that you're constantly telegraphing messages based on your comportment. So what it comes down to for me is that, especially when you're in a crisis, when you're dealing with an enrollment situation, or now with this, COVID-19 challenge, we have the pandemic. If I want to be in a joyful place, then I need to be joyful, especially I'm the leader. I want to have fun at school, right? So my jokes aren't always great, but I tell them, and and if I want to be, I am hopeful, and so I need to. If we are going to have hope as a community, then I need to project that. So I guess that's what I mean. I guess the important part of this mindset is just a reminder to anyone in a leadership role in a school facing enrollment decline that you have to be really careful about being intentional about the messages you're sending and recognizing the unintentional messages that you send. And so much of that can be just how you carry yourself, the ways in which you are or are not intentionally inviting to people around you. It's really important, especially in a crisis, that you project those qualities that you want to see in your community.
Yeah, very important. We do have time for some questions at the end before we hit on the last growth mindset. There's a couple more people that have joined us along the way. Robin from Mounds Park Academy in the Twin Cities, great school that I've had the opportunity to work with, and also Paula from Christian Heritage in Minnesota. So great to see some northern school leaders joining us during this live show today. So the last one is important. Great schools are always becoming, which really gets at the point, I believe, that we're never going to arrive. There's always more that we need to be thinking about and working towards and implementing. We always want to be striving for improvements along the way. So wrap it up for us as we think about this last growth mindset.
Yeah, so I think people around me are tired of me saying this, but I will continue to, because I think that it is the fundamental case for change, and it helps to soften people, I think, in terms of recognizing that it's okay that we're making changes. It's not an indictment on the past. It is just what happens with organizations and groups of people over time. There's an element of forgiveness in this mentality too, because when we make a mistake, we say this also. If we make a misstep with a child or with a family, and we gather that, we get together, we sit down with the family and the teacher, and we own up to the mistake, and we figure out how to make it right. We close by saying, you know what? Okay, we can forgive each other, because great schools are always becoming. We make mistakes, we learn, and we grow. So this is also meant, it's not meant just in an aspirational way, Rick. It's also meant in a humane way, right? We are changing. That's how it's going to be. We're going to have some challenges. We may not always agree. We're going to forgive each other and get along because we believe in the mission of the school and we care about each other. And great schools are always becoming.
Wow, that's just a great way to wrap up the 12 growth mindsets. And I really appreciate you all sharing, during this time. I love what you say at the very, very end in the last paragraph. You said, ultimately, nothing changes if nothing changes. And that's the reality. We have to be involved in change, in growth. And sometimes that stretches us out of our comfort zones, and doing something new, like, a live show on Facebook or whatever it may be. We have to tackle, these changes and to be able to focus in on this. So there's a question coming in from Robin, and she wants to know, how do you make sure parents and students don't feel like they're always being used as part of a publicity campaign?
I'm wishing I had a little more context for the question. Robin, do you mean the internal marketing that we do, like through the homeroom app? Or
you might actually, how I would interpret it is that maybe she's asking that we're always showcasing stories of our parents to show them off, to attract prospective parents to us. And they might feel like they're part of an ad campaign or a social media campaign out there. So
I would go back to the authenticity piece. I think when you're like truly celebrating student accomplishments, faculty accomplishments, something wonderful happening in the school. I think to me, and I'm also a parent in the school, it feels honest, it feels joyful, it's a celebration. It doesn't feel like pure marketing. That it's that we're not just using the students to further ourselves. We truly believe in what we're doing, and we're so excited about what we're doing. And I think your marketing can express that.
Jen, can I also add, I think to make a distinction, the homeroom photos are shared only with that classroom. So, pictures of kids having fun, that goes to the parents in that class. Mm-hmm. Anything that goes external, like on the website or in any sort of a campaign that would be an external promotion, that's always with the express permission of the parents. So, parents who are uncomfortable with feeling leveraged or something like that from the school would absolutely have an opportunity to say, nah, we're not going to do that. So I feel like for the most part, parents, I think we have some like 80 parent testimonials on grade schools or something like that. And, most of which are unsolicited. It's part of just the people are happy and they want to share it, but we would never ever. I think it would be countercultural for us to promote our schools or the children or the activities at the school in a way that was simply aimed at marketing.
Yeah, it has to be authentic, coming from the parent and student's experience. Mm-hmm. So this has been a great show. Andy comments, he says, phenomenal content, leadership in action. And that's exactly what I see among all three of you. I so appreciate you joining in on my live show today. Great article, great turnaround story at your school. And I highly recommend that you all who have been watching, or you'll hear the replay, to be able to take these 12 growth mindsets. And this is a starting point. As Oli says, there may be 20, 50, or 100 of these, but develop your own growth mindsets for what you need to implement in your school as we deal with uncertainty in regards to COVID-19 or with the enrollment or with the future. We need to wrap ourselves around these growth mindsets. As one school that I recently had a conversation with, actually Mounds Park Academy, they talked about how they're using this article as the foundation for their administrative retreat. So they're going to be working through these 12 growth mindsets, and highly recommend that you all utilize this. And again, Oli and Mary Jo and Jennifer, thank you so much for being part of the live show today. Appreciate you all and your time.
Thank you, Rick. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, we'll see you all out there on a future live show. So stay tuned into my blog, and look forward to engaging with you all with additional live content along the way. Have a great rest of your week, everyone. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.